All right. Well, we are officially on our episode one of our podcast. And we're going to get into a lot of very, very good details about who John is, who I am, why we named our podcast what we named it, and then just a little bit of background of basically like your story and my story and how we got here and why we decided to do this. But I guess we'll just start. My name is Edgar. Uh,
Yeah, I'm Jon Grogan. Both of us are co-owners of a roofing and construction company
yeah,
here in Arvada, Colorado. And yeah, I would say that's probably about the briefest introduction as far as who we are.
yeah.
Um, I'll
And
let you-
so, yeah, so basically, like one of the things that why we wanted to start this podcast was because we want to be able to connect with people. And so, to reveal the name, it's going to be called the Rewind Podcast. So, um, the idea behind the podcast that we had mutually, we've been planning and we've been talking about starting a podcast for I don't know how long, like a close to like a year, maybe a
I
little
would
bit more.
say since we started the company, which was about
Yeah,
2.5 years ago, we've always talked about having a podcast and having a platform to just share our knowledge. It wasn't even originally like we didn't have a
yeah.
name or anything. We were just going to do it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So the rewind and what that means to us and why we decided to pick that name. Our goal with this podcast is not necessarily to focus on our company, even though we just got done working right before Christmas. And so if you watch this, you're gonna be watching it after Christmas. But basically the name of our company is Virtuous Roofing, which is the sponsor of the podcast. But then we go into the Rewind podcast where we're gonna be interviewing a lot of people within the community. Um, Things about like how they got started with their companies, how they went about their business, the struggles of real estate agents, the struggles of entrepreneurship, and it's not going to be focused around us. So that's what we're making this episode, the first episode, and giving you guys a background story of who we are and why we do what we do and what where we see ourselves in the near future. But I guess I'll ask you a few questions to kind of start off. Like, yeah, tell me a little bit of tell everybody a little bit about your background and you're growing up. What did that look like for you?
yeah, a little bit a rewind on my story and my life. So I grew up here in Arvada, Colorado. I am one of nine. Came from a very large family. Seven boys and two girls to be exact. So very, very interesting way to
Yeah,
grow up. Definitely not the norm these days. It seems like people are having less and less kids. Most people are home to like two or three. But anyways, so yeah, grew up in a very, very large family.
do you think that's like one of the things that drives you to do what you're doing now? Like, did you grow up like in a very competitive atmosphere, or was it
Yeah.
just like growing up with siblings and it was just smooth and easy? And
100%. No, that's one of the things that I think it drives me more than anything is just that competitive nature, that competitive edge that we have with each other. It's funny to see us all grown up now. Like, I mean, when we were younger, we would all bicker and fight more than dogs and cats. Like, it was pretty ridiculous. We all hated each other. It's pretty,
yeah,
pretty good. If you guys are all listening and watching this, please have some grace because we're all very good friends now. Now
yeah,
that we're all grown up and older, we all get along, we all talk, we all go to family get-togethers, which is pretty cool, and I really
yeah,
enjoy. But there's still that competitive edge between me and my brothers. It's funny when we started the company. It's just like it was funny to see them all just kind of level up in life as well. Like I don't know if it was because of me doing this, but I'm pretty interactive with all of my siblings
yeah,
just to see them, you know, all go out there. One of my brothers ended up starting his own company. One of my brothers, he's a very, very successful and awesome, father.
yeah.
And dad, he takes a lot of pride in that.
And
But he's
which
also in the
brothers
military.
do you have?
This is
Seven.
this is Andrew. Andrew, he was
Okay,
he
Andrew.
was very successful in the military and the army, and now he's a respectable father, and husband. And then one of my brothers just started his own horse business. Sam, I don't know exactly to call it.
It's
Something like that.
yeah, Grogan horses.
Grogan horses.
Yeah, I got you guys. If you watch.
Yeah,
Uh,
Rogan horses and stuff, and so it's been very cool. And one of my brothers, like they're all. It's actually surprising on about how all incredibly successful we are.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to heads bounce off of each other, ideas and things like that, and just to kind of push each other to that next level. So yeah, absolutely, that plays a huge role
Yeah.
into a lot of my character growing up.
Yeah, yeah. I've met your whole family, your mom, your dad. I see him at church every Sunday, and it's really cool to see, like, I've gotten to see you grow as well, like, the past, ever since we reconnected back in, I think it was, like, 3 or no, like, 5 years ago.
More like 6, I
Yeah,
think.
but I guess, like, with that being said, like, just take us a little bit through your timeline of
Yeah, so
your high school years,
the high school and everything.
everything that you've done as far as, like, the challenges that you're facing. This is why John is who John is
Yeah.
to this day.
Yeah, I'll try and get through high school pretty quickly just because high school is my least favorite time of my life. I absolutely despise
Yeah.
school in and of itself. It was very boring to me. Nothing in the classroom. I think there was like maybe 2 or 3 classes that actually caught my attention, and I still only got like C's maximum and stuff. And so
Yeah.
I was very, very terrible at school. I was actually held back once, and I was actually about to be held back again. But I decided to drop out and get my GED because it just was not panning out. And one of the reasons, that's actually how me and Edgar met. That's how we met. Is I decided to drop out of school and get a part-time. I got a part-time job at a gym during the summer before I was about to
Yep.
go back to school, and I was going to go and be a firefighter and all that stuff. But I got a part-time job at a gym,
Mhm.
Aspire Fitness, and that's where I met Edgar and many other people, like big influences in my life
Yeah.
that have like I attribute a lot of where I'm at today to that. And uh and yeah, I there was a big falling out in management, and for whatever reason, you guys liked me enough to promote me to management, which was a dumb idea because I did
Yeah.
very well at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're both in the same boat though. Like,
Yeah.
that part of our lives, I think they kind of intertwined a little bit, just because, like, I was the same in high school. Like, not to bring a little bit of my story as well. Like,
Yeah.
I was terrible in high school. Like, I mean, I went to court ever since, like, I think I was like in elementary school. I was a little rebel.
Which is bizarre knowing you today because I could never picture you in jail or anything like that.
Well, I didn't go to
Other,
jail.
other than, or maybe not jail, but other than being too competitive.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I
No,
couldn't
I get
picture
it.
you, being one of those
So
types of kids.
looking back, I don't know. For me, it was one of those things where I don't think that like I didn't like following rules. I liked to win. I didn't like to lose, but I never was disciplined enough to stick to one thing. And I think it relates nowadays, like, to our business, where I'm more of the, if we do something, we're doing it and we're consistent with it as long as I'm kept accountable, as opposed to like me just sprinting, like, I just make decisions on the
Yeah.
fly kind of thing. But same background. Like, I was
Yeah.
never good at high school. I was never good during elementary or middle school, and I wasn't never taught, to be disciplined, basically growing up without a father type of thing. And it does take a role. So I guess on that sense, kind of tells a little bit about, like, the father role that you have. I know that's a big thing in your life, like growing
Yeah.
up from, you and your
Yeah.
brothers. I've heard many stories about your dad, and respects to your dad and your mom for
Yeah.
raising a lot of kids.
It's bizarre, yeah, because most people who have a family that large, there's one of two answers that I get. It's like, are you Mormon, or are you or is it like a different father and mother type situation? And no, I mean, it was my parents that raised us all from beginning to end. My parents are still together to this day, and they are happily married, and it's really fantastic to see their relationship flourishing. Even now,
Mhm.
that they're both in their like late 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, my father, massive role. It's taught me so much. Growing up, you kind of, and I know you didn't have a dad, so it's maybe a little bit more difficult for you to relate. But I cannot stress the importance of that role
Mhm.
and stuff. And because when I was younger, of course, I hated the discipline. I hated
Yeah.
the being kept accountable, the strict, because my dad was very firm. Like he had a very, very firm hand where I have been kicked out many, many times.
Yeah.
As many of my brothers, I think we've all been kicked out at least once or twice. And some of them didn't come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's like what we needed. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't tolerate the crap that we were doing under his roof.
Yeah.
And I think that was very important because if he had, like, I see so many families like that are just, letting their kids, run wild,
Mhm.
because they don't want their kids to leave. They don't want to do that. And it was like, I've talked to my dad about it since, and it's, funny because he didn't want to do that. Like, he
Mhm.
hated it. Like, it hurt him every time
Yeah.
to do that, but that just shows his character. So he's been a massive, massive role model for me. So
Yeah.
Dad, if you hear this, just know, I may not say it in person. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
your mom, like,
Oh,
man, she's the sweetest
an
of
angel.
people
Yeah.
that I've ever met. Like, they ever since like I met you, like when we had Bible studies at your house and like we
Mhm.
were going over and stuff like that, like yeah, your mom is. I feel like my mom and your mom both feel the same way about them.
They're both
They're
sweethearts.
both
Your
just
mom is, if I could communicate with her, she's more than Spanish, I'm sure we
yeah,
would have a
Spanish
lot to
only
say.
speaking. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
ma, te quiero. But no, for real, like your mom's. Tell us a little bit
I
about
appreciate that. Yeah.
growing up with your mom and her
Yeah.
being, the sweetheart that she is. But I guess like we can go past that stage in life.
Yeah, I was gonna say because we do have a limited amount of time, so we'll just kind of jump forward because I want to get to both of our backgrounds.
Yeah.
I want to get to you as well. But yeah, so sweetheart, mother and father, I attribute a lot of my own success to a lot of what they did and how they raised me. But moving past that, so me and you, like right after high school, dropped out, got my GED. Me and you working in the gym industry together, both running our own gyms. You were running the Westminster gym, I was running the Arvada gym, and we kind of became really, really good friends. And that slingshotted me into life. Like I don't know about you, but that completely
Yeah.
almost put into a job that you weren't ready for, but it
Mm-hmm.
got the gears turning, got
Yeah.
things rolling, the entrepreneur spirit and all of that, being around like-minded people and stuff, being appreciated for
Mm-hmm.
how I thought and stuff, and the gym culture, because that's something that I really didn't get at my house. Is like me and you were both huge fitness nuts.
Yeah.
And so being around like-minded people really, really helped me out. And so that stage of my life completely transformed everything. Fast forward a little bit more, the gym ended up shutting down,
Yeah.
and I actually went into a really, really tough part of my life. And this is where me and you kind of separated paths for about a year or so. And I got
It
into,
was like 2 years. Yeah.
it was about
Yeah.
2 years. And I went down a pretty dark road of, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, not fulfilling my life, being a perpetual liar, just not good
Yeah.
stuff at all. And I thank God, and this is, kind of the turning point was when I gave my life to Christ at the beginning of 2019 that year, because I couldn't get off drugs to save my life. I couldn't do anything on my own. So I was like, fine, God, I clearly can't do anything with this life, so it's yours.
Yeah.
Please do something with it. And not a month later, I think it was less than that,
Mhm.
you shot me a text out of nowhere, like, hey man, what's going on? Like, what are you up to?
Mhm.
And so me and you started hanging out again. And that's when, the whole entrepreneur spirit, came back up and everything. And we almost started another gym together. We almost started a gym ourselves. And it's terribly.
When we were, I don't even know
Yeah.
how we were gonna afford that, but I was just like, dude, let's just do it.
I know.
Didn't work out.
No,
Kind of
thank
go out.
God. Thank God.
Oh yeah.
But yet, so many, so we just kind of took off and started, working together and doing a bunch of stuff. I tried to help out with you and your family's cleaning business, and it's unfortunate for me to say, it speaks a lot to you and less to me, but you kind of just picked me up and dragged me, and that goes to your spirit of just being able to make choices off the bat, and not think too much about it, not wait for the right moment, but now's the time. Let's do it now and stuff. Where I struggle with that. I'm a very consistent person, where it's like my daily routine. I would rather die than break it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty, good in some aspects, terrible, and it goes back to an addictive nature.
Yeah.
But it's great, when I get started on something great, like I won't leave the path.
Yeah.
But getting started is a problem
Yeah.
for me. And so yeah, amazing story. We can talk more about our faith backgrounds a little bit later.
Yeah. And then just to pinpoint, like during that time when he said I picked him up and we were kind of after he was going through the situation with drugs and everything, I didn't even know about. I was doing my own thing. When Aspire, that company, shut down, I went and I worked for a few other gyms. I worked for 24. I was a sales manager there. I ran the team at the Arvada branch, and then moved to another gym shortly before that. I was at another gym, and then I kind of worked there. But then again, I personally can never sit still.
Yeah.
Like, that I'm, if it's not thinking about like what we're doing next and what, like, there's just so much potential out there. And so when that happened, I feel like I was like working 2 jobs. I was working a full-time sales manager from, what was that, like noon till 9 p.m. And then I would get off work, eat, and then I would try to work out, but then I would go work with my family from I think it was like once 10:30 hit, I was in the field with my family until about 5 a.m. And then I would sleep 3-4 hours, and then I would wake up and go to the gym again and slang memberships. And then I did that for like a year. I wasn't making money whatsoever, but kind of tying that in, it was just crazy that like I was getting tired around that time. I was just like mentally and physically drained. I was like, there's just more to this, just working 2 jobs, like busting my butt. And, like I was expecting things to be more successful. And that's when I called you. I was like, I need to bring more people to help me kind of get back into that, like, the mentality of competition. Like that's what I thrive in. And that's when I reached out to you. And it was just like definitely a God thing for sure. Cause I know you were going through that during that time.
Yeah.
You were kind of getting out of it. So you were like extremely jacked and like you did nothing but work at the pool and then work out. And then you were just ripped. You were like, really trying to get yourself back into where.
Yeah. Fitness was my only ambition.
Yeah.
At that point. Not super.
Well, your goal was to push to be, in the CrossFit Games, which is like the fittest man on the planet.
Yeah.
And like what happened to that? Like what kind of steered you away from that? And I know I changed a little bit of subjects, but I was going to
No, I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on that a little bit more too, of just, that influence that you had. But yeah, so I mean that, for one, this guy, you're by far the hardest worker I've ever known. Like that whole time, I don't know how you did it. For those of you that, I'm going to jump forward and then go back a little bit, but shortly after, that me and him, I was working at a pool. I was doing terrible morning shifts, 3 a.m. to about 1:00 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, terrible for me trying to work out, trying to go to the CrossFit Games and everything. And in the midst of all of that, and this is how we got into construction, he met up with an old friend of ours that we worked in the gym industry with, who just started a roofing and construction company. He goes there. He had already decided that we were going to work for this roofing company, but he neglected to tell me that when we went.
Yeah.
So we go up there, we meet with them and everything, and they pull out the manila folders. And I thought we were just checking out like what this is, what kind of money you can make and all of that and everything. And so I was like, just, wanted to hear more. And then Christian pulls out the manila folder. He's like, all right, sign here and everything. And I'm like, I look over at you. These are just sign it. And I did, like, the things that you have gotten me to do. And my life like flipped upside down at that point, because
there's a lot of challenges to do that too, though. Like it was like not ending for you, like during that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it was a horrible year. 2019 was my 2020.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we decided to, he got me to move out of my parents' house and leave my only, salary paying job while taking on a full-time rent, full-time bills, all for the first time in my life, leave my job and start working at a commission-based only roofing company that neither one of us had any idea what we were doing. So all of that was terrible. In 2019 just absolutely sucked so much. I think for me specifically, but for both of us, I think we both definitely had our trials and errors.
Oh, 100%.
Our testings. So that was kind of jumping forward a little bit. I can't remember what I was going to jump back to. Yeah. Fittest man on earth. There was a poor, my entire life growing up was all working out. Like I just, I loved the gym. I loved CrossFit. I loved being able to push my body to the maximum extent that it could go to, to enjoy that pain and everything. And that's what I really enjoyed. But God had other plans because ever since we started, and it's very surprising that that I gave it up, because it was because that was like my end all be all. Like I truly thought I was going to be the fittest man on earth, which maybe someday, eventually. But
it's never too late. I mean, you're only 25.
Yeah,
you got plenty of time to go. Some heavy weights and get back to it. And I think I kind of seen more growth from you now that we decided to start a company, and we're going to touch base a little bit about that, like why we started our company, and not go too much into detail about that, but just kind of get a background of, just in general, why.
I'm going to do a quick interjection. I think that we should turn this into 2 podcasts, because we only got about 10 minutes left, guys. And I would like to really dig into your story next time and stuff, because we've only really gone through my story. So I think we should turn this into a into
Oh,
a two-part
yeah.
first episode.
Yeah.
And but anyways, but yeah, getting to all of that, yeah, we worked for we went and we worked for that roofing and construction company, got through 2019, which was a struggle of a year.
Yeah.
Don't even know how I paid the bills, and definitely an act of God. And I think how we both made it through, because most months, like, I did not know where the bills were. I didn't know how things were going to get paid. Like, literally living off of PB&J. And meanwhile, you are getting 3 hours of sleep, working 18 hours a day, and yelling at kids on video games.
Yeah. Back when I used to play video games.
Yeah.
Not no more. It made me very anxious. I don't know, the competitive side. And then when you're losing to a 10-year-old on Fortnite, I'm down with that life. I ain't going back.
No, being roommates was very, very interesting. But
being roommates, like hearing stories of like we lived together for three and a half years or so. And I mean, during that time, like we never really hearing stories from other people about roommates, and it never works out. People end up like fighting with each other. People end up like with disagreements, or someone doesn't pay the rent. Someone, crazy enough, we never had any problems besides your crumbs on the counter. And I was like the only like,
you don't finish your food.
Yeah. And so the little things like that, it's like, it's kind of like what, the problems that we had is like about food. And like, the other thing that did piss me off, when he would get up before me, and he would, because we also had another roommate, but the other roommate had their own bathroom, and we had to share a restroom. So anytime in the mornings, I'm so competitive that if I get to take my shower first and leave out the door before he did, that would really, really, really.
You wouldn't talk to me.
I would not talk to
42 minutes,
because I felt like I lost that day. I'm like, dang it. So if I heard him like barely like move in the apartment, I was out of my room in the shower.
I think you only got 3 hours of sleep because you were just listening for me.
Probably, I don't know, man. But I just that competitive side, I just never.
Oh yeah.
Ever.
And equally, it pissed me off as well, because during that time of my life, I mean, I'm always perpetually late, but that would just ensure that I was going to be late.
Yeah.
I did because I refused to like, I would refuse to leave the house without my full routine completed and stuff. And so I would still take my shower, even if it would make me late.
And, but
what a bizarre time of life.
Yeah, bizarre time. And then just fast forward a little bit, and this is kind of tying everything to his story. Like he said, we'll probably do a second part 2 of this introduction of our podcast. And again, it's going to be a little different. We're going to be having a few mics on the table. We're going to be having guests in the future, but we wanted to make sure that you guys knew who we are and what we're doing. But anyways, to tie in that whole story, 2019 was the toughest year in your life. And then what happened after the tough part of that? Like, when did you start seeing things kind of change and kind of go in your favor? And
pretty interesting. It's like, something definitely clicked in my head. I came to this point, I wrestled with God with it a lot of, like success and how to be successful and all of that. And in one thing that I have learned about God is he forces you to grow. Like, you are not going to stay in the same place even through the hard times. And it's like, I got fed up with not being able to pay my bills or anything like that in this, commission-based job. And I wanted to be successful at it because I knew the money that you could make in it. And so I finally got to the point where it's like, I was always, kind of like, I think it was because of how many people I had around me growing up. Somebody's always coming to help. Like, somebody will always be there. And that's a great thing about my family. But I refused to ask any of them for money or anything like that. And so I got to the point where it's like, I had this voice come into my head. It's like literally say, it's like, nobody's going to help you but you. You've got to stop waiting for other people to pull up your slack. You've got to get your crap. And ever since then, it's like, I started doing, miserable things, taking cold showers in the morning, making my workouts more miserable, even though they were already miserable. And forcing myself to implement a lot of those disciplines into sales and making myself, money isn't a big motivator for me, but it is obviously the blood and the lifeline of pretty much everything and how things work. And so pulled myself up by my bootstraps, stopped relying on other people and stuff. And I had obviously you guys there to help me out and teach me along the way. And so, and that clicked. And then ever since then, I've just, I mean, things have just skyrocketed. I haven't had problems with bills in years, thanks to God. And yeah, you just get to that point where you're just fed up with lying to people. You're fed up with not being who you say you're going to be. And what clicked in my head is that nobody's going to do it but you, which is, it seems pretty
Yeah.
self-explanatory. Like that's just kind of like, why didn't I think of that sooner? And I think it's just, it was that transition from being a child still to then fully being an adult and
Yeah.
taking on that responsibility of all those things and not letting you down anymore, not being late on the rent, like all of these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So,
These change mentality changes. And
yeah.
I mean, you either adapt, you break, but somehow you end up figuring it out. And like you said,
Yeah.
just I think the biggest thing I had to learn over the years is just having grace with
Yeah.
people and just like not being too harsh on people.
Yeah.
And I mean, I couldn't. I'm in no place to judge anyone. I'm human as well. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
So I guess to kind of end the first episode, part one of the introduction of why we're doing this and the story behind both of us. Where do you see, I guess, give people an idea of what you expect from this podcast to
Yeah.
how do you hope that this, because it's not going to be about roofing. It's not going to be about our company. Like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be sponsored by Virtuous. And where do you see like this, what kind of impact do you want and how, what can people expect from this
Yeah.
on your perspective?
Yeah, I think that one of the most powerful things that there is on the planet is, people's testimonies, people's stories, and their advice to give to other people. I think that a large problem with most people is they just don't take the time to listen to other people and what they've been through and stuff. And everybody's on a high horse to think that they've got it all figured out. And so, I mean, yeah, I think the most powerful, and that's one thing that I learned in sales is just excellent communication skills. And part of that is, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You got to listen more than you talk.
Mhm.
And so my expectation for this, and it's not even for me, it's for everybody, but just to get the idea and not to, copy it, not to, copy Joe Rogan or any people like that, but just to hear other people's stories and other people's side of things. And it'll be focused and catered towards specifically business people, obviously. But yeah, their story of, growing through life and what starting a company has done to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And on my perspective, and,
Yeah.
and I love everything he said, like he pretty much nailed it. We've discussed different names and different ideas and, whether we were going to make it about roofing or not. And we just thought it was best if we didn't do it around what we do because so far, I mean, in the business, we've been very successful and very blessed. So we want to just extend that opportunity for other people to share their stories because it's not about him and I. It's not about our company, even though we do, this is what runs everything. But it's about other people's like vision and rewinding. It's essentially an rewinding their story and going back in time and hearing what they have to say and what tips they have for us, even if it's not in roofing, even if they're, real estate agents, if they are,
Mechanics.
whatever it is, like where do we want to hear the story? So if you have a story, that you want to share, if you want a platform where you can go, we would love to support you, your ideas, your dreams, and your story of how you got here. And then my expectation is to grow this, to just be able to hear,
Well, and
every person, that we can possibly hear. How their story.
and build up other people's businesses and allow them a platform to succeed and get their name out there as well. I think that that's very, large. Like, Edgar said, I mean, this is by no means to, and don't want it to sound corny or anything like this, but to fund ourselves, but to give other people a place of, to tell people like, cause, behind every company is like, a deep meaning that most people won't ever see because all they ever see is the brand and the workmanship, but like what, led you to have that brand and that workmanship, which will
Mhm.
give you more depth and allow, people to see that, your charisma and, make you more appealing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess with that being said, we're gonna be wrapping up this episode. There's gonna be more content from this the Rewind podcast. Again, it is sponsored by Virtuous Roofing, and we're gonna put links of our company as well, so we can continue to be able to support this idea. And then also our videographer Salcedo, he is absolutely awesome, dude. Thank you for your help with everything.
We'll have to interview you.
Yeah. So basically, if you guys have any topics that you would like to hear in the future, or any companies that you have, in mind, or if you own a company, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're in the fitness industry, whatever if you have a good story, a powerful story that you want to share, we would love to bring you to our office. We would love to give you an opportunity to share your background, and we would love to hear it and learn from it. So, with that being said, dude, thank you for sharing. I know we'll
Yeah.
get more into your story. I know there's a lot more that we've talked about.
I'm excited to dig into yours next week.
Yeah.
I think, people have got the gist of mine and where we're at. And when we get into yours, we can really share the start of all of this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, guys, for episode 2 next week. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. And welcome to the new podcast, and it's The Rewind. We're going back in time with everyone. So see ya.